The unyielding spirit, Wallace the Icon, Scotland, a land of rugged beauty and fierce pride. Its history is filled with heroes who fought for freedom. One name echoes louder than most: William Wallace, a symbol of defiance against overwhelming odds. His story is one of courage, inspiring people even today. Wallace dared to challenge a mighty empire. Not born a king or a great lord, he became the heart of Scottish resistance. He fought against King Edward I of England, known as the Hammer of the Scots. Edward sought to bring Scotland under his control, but Wallace stood against him. The Battle of Stirling Bridge was his masterpiece. In September 1297, Wallace led a smaller, less equipped army to a stunning victory. This battle was a turning point, showing that England was not invincible. It almost shattered English rule in Scotland. This is the tale of that incredible moment. We will explore the man, the myth, and the battle that defined him. We will look at the political turmoil that birthed a rebellion, how one man's determination ignited a nation, how strategic genius at a narrow bridge changed the course of a war. This is the story of William Wallace and how he almost toppled a king. The late 13th century was a dangerous time for Scotland. In 1286, King Alexander III died tragically, leaving no direct male heir. His only living descendant was a young granddaughter, Margaret, the Maid of Norway. She was just a child and lived across the sea. The Scottish nobles knew this was a perilous situation. They tried to secure the succession by betrothing Margaret to Edward I's son. But fate intervened. Margaret died on her journey to Scotland. The throne was now truly empty. 13 different claimants stepped forward, each believing they had a right to rule. This was the great cause. Scotland teetered on the brink of civil war. Edward I of England saw his opportunity. He offered to arbitrate the Scottish succession. The Scottish nobles, desperate to avoid conflict, agreed. They walked into Edward's trap. He demanded they recognize him as Lord Paramount, overlord of Scotland. Edward chose John Balliol as King of Scots in 1292, a man he could control. Edward humiliated Balliol repeatedly, undermining Scottish law and treating Scotland like a vassal state. Taxes were levied, soldiers were demanded for England's wars, Scottish pride was wounded, and resentment simmered beneath the surface. The kingdom was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. William Wallace was not from the high echelons of Scottish nobility. He was a member of the gentry, his family holding some land. Born around 1270, his early life is shrouded in mystery. Legends fill the gaps, painting him as a man driven by personal tragedy and a burning hatred for English oppression. One popular story tells of the murder of his wife, Marion Braidfew, by English soldiers. This event, if true, would have fueled his desire for vengeance. Other accounts speak of his father, Sir Malcolm Wallace, being killed by the English. Whatever the trigger, Wallace's path was set. He began to fight back with small, localized actions. Wallace was a striking figure, reputedly very tall and possessing immense physical strength. He was a natural leader, charismatic and fearless. He gathered a band of followers, waging a guerrilla war against English garrisons. They ambushed patrols, attacked supply lines, and made life difficult for the English occupiers. His reputation grew, becoming a symbol of hope for a subjugated people. A pivotal moment came in May 1297 when Wallace led an attack in Lanark, killing William Heselrigg, the English sheriff of Lanark. This was no mere skirmish, it was a direct assault on English authority, an act of open rebellion. Wallace was now an outlaw, a wanted man, but to many Scots he was a hero. His bold defiance inspired others, and the rebellion began to spread from a flicker to a flame. The summer of 1297 saw Wallace's rebellion gain momentum. He joined forces with Andrew Moray. Their armies captured castles and drove out English officials. By late summer, much of Scotland north of the River Forth was in their hands. Edward I ordered his army to crush the rebellion. The English army was commanded by John de Warenne and Hugh de Cressingham. They led a formidable force, confident, perhaps overconfident. They marched towards Stirling, where Stirling Castle controlled the vital crossing of the River Forth. Wallace and Moray understood the strategic importance of Stirling. They positioned their smaller Scottish army on the Abbey Craig, overlooking the narrow wooden bridge. This bridge was the key, barely wide enough for 2 horsemen. The surrounding land was soft and marshy, not ideal for heavy cavalry. Wallace planned to use the terrain to his advantage. The Scots watched as the English army arrived on the south bank. The English commanders debated their next move. Some advised caution, suggesting finding another ford, but Cressingham urged an immediate attack across the bridge. He dismissed the Scots as a rabble. His arrogance would prove fatal. The English began to cross slowly into Wallace's trap. On the morning of September 11th, 1297, the English began their advance. The narrow bridge created an immediate bottleneck. Their powerful army could only cross in a trickle. Wallace and Moray held their Scots back, waiting. When Wallace judged the moment was right, the signal was given. The Scots charged, hitting the English vanguard like a thunderbolt. The English knights who had crossed were caught completely by surprise. They had no room to maneuver, trapped between the charging Scots and the river. The bridge behind them was now a scene of utter chaos. The fighting was brutal, vicious, hand to hand. The Scots fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a thirst for freedom. The English knights, despite their superior armor and training, were overwhelmed. They were cut down where they stood or driven into the river to drown. The bridge itself became a killing field. Panic seized the English forces. Surrey, the commander, tried to send reinforcements, but it was too late. The bridge was choked with the dead and dying. The English army was split, and those on the north bank were annihilated. The Battle of Stirling Bridge was a catastrophic defeat for England, a glorious victory for Scotland. The aftermath of Stirling Bridge was stunning. The English army was shattered. Thousands lay dead, including Hugh de Cressingham. The Earl of Surrey fled south, barely escaping with his life. The English grip on Scotland was broken, at least for now. This victory sent shockwaves across both kingdoms. In Scotland, it ignited a surge of national pride. Hope soared, and Wallace was celebrated as the hero of the hour. He was knighted and proclaimed Guardian of the Kingdom of Scotland. Wallace took his responsibilities seriously, organising the administration and restoring order. He even launched raids into northern England, taking the fight to the enemy's own land. For a brief period, Scotland was effectively independent once more, but King Edward I was not a man to accept defeat lightly. Retribution was coming. Wallace's time as Guardian of Scotland was tragically short. Edward I gathered a new larger army and marched north in 1298. The two forces met at the Battle of Falkirk. This time Edward's tactics, particularly his use of longbowmen, proved superior. The Scots suffered a heavy defeat and Wallace's army was broken. After Falkirk, Wallace resigned as Guardian. He continued the fight as a guerrilla leader. He was betrayed in 1305, handed over to the English by a Scottish knight, John de Menteith. He was taken to London, subjected to a show trial, and brutally executed. Edward intended Wallace's gruesome death to be a warning, but it had the opposite effect. Wallace's martyrdom fueled the flames of resistance. He became a legendary figure, a symbol of Scottish patriotism. His courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to freedom inspired future generations. The fight for Scottish independence did not die with Wallace. It was taken up by others, most notably by Robert the Bruce. The victory at Stirling Bridge planted a seed, demonstrating that Scottish soldiers could triumph. This lesson paved the way for Bruce's ultimate victory at Bannockburn in 1314. William Wallace did not live to see a free Scotland, but his spirit, the flame of freedom he ignited, burned brightly, and it continues to burn in the heart of Scotland today.